Welcome! Today we're going to break down one of the most important metrics out there, return on investment, or ROI. But look, this isn't just going to be a math class. We're going to treat ROI like a strategic tool, a lens that helps us make way smarter, more profitable decisions. Because at the end of the day, ROI isn't just a number you calculate, it's a tool you need to learn how to wield. Let's dive in. I mean, really, think about it. It's the big question, isn't it? Whether you're launching a product, buying a stock, or even just working on a personal project, you need a way to know if it's all worth it. You need a clear, objective yardstick to see if your efforts are actually paying off. And that is exactly where ROI shines. So here's our game plan. First, we'll cover the basics. What exactly is ROI? Then we'll get our hands dirty and run through the actual calculations. After that, we'll explore some more advanced real-world scenarios. We'll weigh the pros and cons, and finally, we'll wrap it all up with how to use ROI like a true strategist. All right, let's start at square one. What are we really talking about when we say ROI? Well, you can think of it as the universal language of performance. It tells you if something was a good use of your money. Okay, here's the formal definition. At its heart, ROI is a super simple ratio. It evaluates how efficient an investment was by comparing what you gained to what you spent. And crucially, it's almost always shown as a percentage, which makes it incredibly easy to compare different things side by side. I love this explanation because it just cuts right to the chase. It's so simple. Did your money work hard for you? If you put $1 in, did you get more than $1 back? ROI is what gives you a precise number for that answer. It's basically the final score on the board for your investment. Okay. Theory is one thing, but let's make this real. In this next part, we are going to walk through the actual formulas and then apply them to a real-world example so you can see exactly how all the pieces fit together. So the main formula is beautifully simple. You just take your net return, that's your pure profit after everything is paid for, and you divide it by what the investment originally cost you. Then you multiply by 100, and bam, you get that clean percentage. Now this is just another way of looking at the same formula, but it's really useful because it forces you to be super precise. That final value isn't just what you sold it for. It has to include any extra income you made, like dividends, and that initial value has to include all your costs. It's a great way to make sure nothing gets forgotten. All right, let's put this to the test with a made-up company, Worldwide Wickets Co. So we bought 1,000 shares at $10 each. That means our initial cost was $10,000. Later, we sold them for $12.50 a share. Along the way, we also collected $500 in dividends, but we had to pay $125 in commissions. That's all the info we need. Now, we just follow the steps. First, we figure out our profit from the sale price, which is $2,500. Then we add in those dividends, which gets our total gain up to $3,000. And this next part is absolutely critical. We subtract our costs, those commissions, to find our true net return, which is $2,875. Finally, we divide that by our initial $10,000 investment. And there it is, a clean 28.75% ROI. It's a positive number, it's clear, it tells us we made money, great. But is that really the whole story? Well, not by a long shot. This is where we go from just doing the math to actually thinking like a strategist. That basic formula is a fantastic start, but the real world is messy. So let's level up our analysis by looking at two factors the basic formula completely ignores: time and leverage. You know, the biggest weakness of that basic ROI formula, it's completely blind to time. Think about it. A 30% return is amazing if you got it in 1 year. But what if it took you 10 years? Not so great anymore. Annualized ROI fixes this. It tells you your return on a per-year basis, which is absolutely essential if you want a true apples-to-apples comparison between different investments. And this is where it gets really interesting. Just look at this. At first glance, StockX seems like a no-brainer, right? A 50% ROI. But it took 5 years. When we annualize it, we see that stock Y, with its lower total ROI, was actually the better performer. It was a more efficient investment, generating over 9% a year. This is why time matters a lot. Okay, next up, leverage. All leverage means is using borrowed money to invest. The best way to think of it is as an amplifier. It can take a pretty good return and make it an incredible one. But, and this is a huge but, it can also take a tiny loss and turn it into an absolute catastrophe. Let's go back to our Worldwide Wickets example. Remember our ROI was 28.75%? Okay, now what if we had only used $5,000 of our own money and we borrowed the other 5,000. Well, even after paying interest on the loan, our ROI would have shot up to a massive 48.5%. We made the same profit, but because we used less of our own cash, the return was magnified. But here's the other side of that coin. What if the stock had gone down instead of up? Without leverage, we would have had a 16% loss. Not great, but manageable. With that same loan, though, our loss gets amplified to a devastating negative 41.5%. You see, leverage is a double-edged sword. It can lead to incredible wins, but it can also wipe you out. So we've seen how to calculate ROI and how to make it more sophisticated. Now let's step back for a second and put on our consultant hat. What are the real strengths and, more importantly, the weaknesses of relying on ROI to make decisions? Well, the biggest pro is its simplicity. It's so easy to calculate and everyone just kind of gets it. But that simplicity is also its biggest trap. As we've seen, it ignores time, it doesn't account for risk at all, and it can be super misleading if you aren't careful about including all the costs. Let's dig into these blind spots because this is so important. Getting a 15% ROI on a super stable blue chip stock is not the same thing as getting a 15% ROI on a risky startup. The risk you took is completely different, but ROI doesn't see that. Or think about real estate. If you forget to include costs like taxes, insurance, and repairs, your ROI number is basically a fantasy. ROI only sees what you tell it to see. All right, we've covered the what, the how, and the why. So now for the most important part. How do we pull this all together and actually use ROI as a powerful strategic tool instead of a dangerous one? And honestly, if you remember just one thing from all of this, let it be this. ROI is a fantastic starting point. It's the first question you should ask about an investment. But it is never, ever the final answer. It's a snapshot that gives you a vital piece of information, but that snapshot always needs more context. So to wrap this up into a clear mental checklist. First, always annualize your ROI if you're comparing different options. Second, respect leverage. Understand its incredible power, but also its incredible danger. Third, be absolutely ruthless about accounting for every single cost. If you don't, your number is meaningless. And finally, never look at a potential return without immediately asking, okay, and what's the risk involved? So, I'll leave you with this final thought. ROI is an essential metric. It gives you a clear, powerful measure of efficiency. But the real masterclass, the real strategic advantage, comes from knowing that a single number never tells you the whole story. The real work and the real genius is in figuring out everything that number isn't telling you.